Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and this evening we'll be updating you all on the current amber warnings for heavy rain for some western areas, and then we'll have a look at the potential for a quite widespread spring-like period, even for those western areas who've seen a lot of rain over the coming or last few days and the coming days. Do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, as it does really help me out. So currently we're having a look at the GFS, and you can see we've got sort of these long fetch southwesterly winds, and we've had weather fronts through the country today, bringing quite a lot of cloud. It's brightened up from the west. You may have noticed over the last day, if it's rained where you've been and it's dried out, you may have noticed some surfaces being a bit dusty. You may have seen the sky being a little bit yellow, perhaps reddish at sunset as well. That's because we've actually got Saharan dust over the top of us. Not massive amounts, but we've with this southwesterly flow, there was a plume of Saharan dust that is mainly over Europe now. But we did have a pocket over many southern areas, so you may see a bit of Saharan dust in your car, or you may see a bit of a orangey tinge to the sky. It's nothing major, not like ex-hurricane Ophelia that we had a few years ago in 2017, where it was beautiful red skies. But you may just may notice that. As we head through the next couple of days, you see high pressure toward southeast, low pressures to our west, and this is what's really going to be powering up that heavy rain in the west. You see low pressure driving weather fronts. It's not going to make much inroads into the high pressure, and you can see that boundary where the jet stream's moving isn't moving for a good 24, 48 hours, and that's why weather fronts are just going to sit over western areas, for western hills, dragging up very mild air with it, but with some very heavy rain where those weather fronts set up. And at the moment it's sort of northwestern parts of the UK, Wales, and into parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Ireland as well. Beyond that, low pressure doesn't move through for the whole of the country with a colder front. Again, more widespread rain with that before high pressure does really settle it down. And you can see this high pressure really dominates, and we would be bringing quite spring-like conditions, especially in the day. You can see we are pulling up a southeasterly wind, so it's quite a mild air mass off the continent. It's not amazingly mild, where you maybe want the 5 or 10 degree isotherm through, but it's going to be maybe 10 to 15 degrees in the day, depending where you see the sunshine. You see there's a little bit of a colder pull there over England, but if we get into above 0 degrees, maybe up to 5 degrees at 850 HPA, you could easily be seeing maybe 12, 13, 14, 15 degrees with nice sunshine. It will feel quite mild indeed, quite spring-like. Overnight, however, with higher pressure and the air mass not being superbly high, it's going to mean there's quite a decent chance we could see some air frosts with that. But as we move through, high pressure really does dominate. The GFS does try and break it down there with that layer of low pressure, but the high pressure just does try and build back in. And you see, although on this GFS run, the high pressure struggles to maintain its strength over the top of the UK, it's always there influencing our weather, and it does pull out into the Atlantic and does pull the weather potentially a little bit cooler towards the end of this GFS run, with weather fronts heading off the North Atlantic, and we see quite a cold polar front there, which would produce very weird conditions, because it would go from maybe 6, 7, 8, 9 degrees to around 1 or 2 degrees in the space of about an hour, as you see very tightly packed isobars, very strong northerly wind, and going from maybe 1 or 2 degrees at 850 HPA to minus 10 in the space of a single weather front. So that would be exceptional. We haven't seen that for a few years, and I suspect it's very much GFS being an outlier. But just interesting to see that. Again, right at the end of the model. But it does show you with high pressure around, even though at the moment in the midterm it does look like it will be bringing spring-like conditions, there's always a possibility it does move a bit further westwards and northwards and could bring down some cold air from the north or the east. Again, it's just potential. There's not really too much backing behind it at this stage. If we have a look at the GM run again, very similar pattern to the GFS, and you can see the high pressure building in from the south, builds across the whole country, and you can see it's centered right over the top of us, pulling up those quite mild southeasterly winds, a bit milder and warmer on the GM here, potentially up to maybe 13, 14, 15 degrees widely, maybe even a bit warmer with the phone effects over some of the hills, on the other side of the hills, and overnight could still be a little bit frosty, but with a bit of a higher air mass, I suggest maybe it won't be as widespread, and it won't be potential of any ground frosts. Beyond that, it can maintain generally mild, but you can see high pressure does try and move to the north, and we start to bring in a slack northerly flow. And if you have a look at those 850 HPAs, it's not particularly cold at all. Only northern tip of Scandinavia really is in bitterly cold air. Most of Western Europe and even getting to Eastern Europe is not particularly cold. There's not a lot of cold air to tap into, but it generally would be going a little bit cooler with a northerly flow of the North Sea, especially quite cool on those east coasts where it only may only get to 6, 7, 8 degrees. And then further inland, potential for overnight frost. With that GM run, again, showing the high pressure maybe moving a little bit further northwards, but again, right at the end of the run, so we can't really say anything too definitive with that. Now, if we have a look at the ECMWF run, again, very similar pattern to the two other models, and then high pressure really dominates over the top of us as we're putting in a continental flow. It's relatively mild. Again, there was that sort of colder pocket that the GFS picked up on, and that would cool down the temperature a little bit and potentially give a chance of more overnight frost. But towards the end of the run, you see high pressure does try and move northwards. Doesn't really make it too far northwards, but we're putting in a slack easterly flow. Not too cold, not too mild. Very difficult to say what the temperatures would be at this stage. Again, if we do start to tap into that colder air, it could drop down to maybe 4 or 5 degrees high. But if we maintain in these yellows, which is above freezing at 850 HPA, it'd more be like maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 degrees, maybe a little bit higher if you get some nice prolonged sunshine. Again, overnight would be quite cold. But the most important thing with this spell of weather we're going to be seeing is it's going to be mild, sorry, not mild, dry, and most likely mild, bringing spring-like conditions, drying up those areas that have seen some dangerous rainfall over the last few days and the coming days. We finally have a look at the GFS ensembles, and you can see we do have a quite distinct outcome within the ensembles if we're going very mild. Around 5 degrees at 850 HPA, which is around 7 or 8 degrees above average, and if we look at the 2 meter temperatures, it's around 14, 15 degrees, maybe a little bit higher in sunshine and in certain regions. Generally remaining fairly warm in the longer term, more precipitation coming in towards the end of the run, potentially showing the Atlantic coming back, and then a few colder runs, potentially showing the high pressure moving a bit further northwards and westwards, allowing lower pressure to come in, but with some colder air as well. Nothing too definitive, as there's a lot of spread, but generally it looks dry, pretty mild, especially for the south and east. But looking at this pattern on those charts, it does look like this will be widespread for the whole country, whole British Isles, and we may be seeing some very nice sort of 4 or 5 day spring patch, where it'll be actually maybe able to get your shorts out and enjoy the weather. Finally, though, we'll have a look at the amber warnings and yellow warnings for rain. As you can see, it's mainly over northern areas, sort of northwest England, getting into southern Scotland and central Scotland as well. Yellow warning for wind as well, but mainly for rain. You can see amber warnings of rain. Potential for maybe 46 millimetres, 120 millimetres, potentially over quite a long period. So it's just going to really increase the river levels and could impact quite a few areas, spreading across into Wednesday as well. The wind warning does subside, but again, widespread rain warnings, mainly over hills and sort of the central belt where the weather fronts sit elsewhere, either side of the warnings and further south into parts of Wales. There will be more rain, but probably not as substantial as we're going to be seeing over Scotland. Quite a deluge there over the next few days. But beyond that, it does look like the high pressure will build in for Scotland, and we will be seeing some drier conditions. So do mind out the next couple of days for any potential flooding with that. Again, mainly over quite susceptible areas for heavy rain over the hills. But it really is one to watch if you are anywhere near these amber warning zones, as it will just rain relentlessly for 24 to 36 hours. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe, and I'll see you for another video soon.